All right. This is Brian Johnson, staff writer with Finance and Commerce. Please be joined by Michael Grage and Troy Malmstrom with GBBN, architects out of Cincinnati, relative newcomers to the Twin Cities. I understand he just opened an office here about 4 years ago. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. Thanks.
Great. Well, thanks for joining me today. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the work you're doing here in the Twin Cities and some of the technology you're using. And I wanted to, though, first give you an opportunity to, I guess, introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit more about your firm and some of the types of work you do.
Sure. Yes. Well, thank you very much, Brian, for this opportunity. Appreciate the the chance to do what I like to do, which was talk about GBBN. So, my name's Michael Grage. I'm a project manager in GBBN's healthcare market. I'm also kind of the office leader here in Minneapolis. And Troy, do you want to give a quick?
Yeah, yeah. My name is Troy Malmstrom. I'm our director of computational design and fabrication, and I get to work across all the offices to help with some of the more complex computer modeling, some of the strategic work within the use of augmented reality within our simulation modeling, and then I also help to figure out how we're going to work with our contractors and fabricators and realize and get some of our work built, working with various teams across all of our offices. We have offices in Cincinnati, Minneapolis. We also have offices down in Louisville and Pittsburgh here in the U.S. So,
Yeah, and
Okay.
just a bit more about the firm. We were founded in 1958 there in Cincinnati. I started the office here 4 years ago, having worked here in Minneapolis since 2007. Um, and I had worked with GBBN on a healthcare project there in Cincinnati back in about 2010. So that's where I first got to know GBBN as a firm. They were the architect of record on a medical office building that we had designed here in Minneapolis. So, yeah, to what Troy was saying, we've got offices four here in North America. We also have one in Beijing, which we started in 2004. That was basically an intern that got an opportunity to go work for one of the larger developers there in China. And so we took that opportunity to open an office there. In terms of our kind of what we do in our markets, we about 60% of what we do is in healthcare. But we also have higher education practice where we specialize in kind of student centers, dining facilities, kind of overall classroom buildings. We do work in the arts as well, primarily performance spaces, both theaters and music venues. And then we also have a mixed use market, which would be, of course, your multifamily apartments, both at both market rate and subsidized. We also do community buildings, primarily like libraries or community centers as well. And then we also have a couple different practices outside of that. One is what we call N4. It's a computer aided facilities management group. So primarily, we've got about four large healthcare clients that are using our folks to kind of manage their facilities using a computer aided facilities management platform. And then we also have a environmental graphics design group as well. So we like to be pretty multifaceted in that. We don't have any engineers in house. We're just basically architecture and interiors. We always like to let our clients kind of dictate who they would prefer to have in terms of the consultants on that.
And I believe you opened here about in 2020, is that right? About
Yep.
4 years ago. So what attracted you to this Minneapolis market?
Yeah, thanks. There, I saw actually, to be honest, we'd been talking for a number of years about me joining them. However, it really wasn't until the pandemic when I saw an opportunity that a lot of folks that I knew were looking for work, and we had been kind of looking at a way to. Well, I know GBBN had always had their eye on Minneapolis as a potential area to expand into because our region kind of fits with the kind of the Midwest, upper Midwest culture that they have here. And so that was one thing. And so when, Michael Lead, our healthcare practice director, and I kind of talked about it, we figured, well, we've got a lot of great potential clients here from the healthcare side. Plus, we've got a really talented pool of designers here in the Twin Cities area. And, folks here from Minneapolis are kind of hard to convince to move away. So we decided it would be worth the risk there during COVID to open up a new office. And so here we are.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah. Any particular projects you'd care to highlight that you're doing here locally?
Oh, sure, sure. From the so we actually we've got work in four of our markets here already. Two in healthcare. So we're doing a freestanding emergency department and a clinic in southeastern Wisconsin, as well as an interior renovation for Children's Minnesota here in Minneapolis. Higher education, we were awarded some work at the University of Minnesota, but pretty small fit out project that unfortunately kind of had to go on hold before we got too far along with that. In terms of arts, we are working with the Hennepin Theater Trust on some ideas for what to do there on Hennepin Avenue in their facilities. And then for mixed use, we're actually finishing up a TI project in I think it's 901 Marquette, formerly the AT&T Building downtown for Brown and Brown, working with Gardner Builders on that. So we've been able to we're starting to pick up steam here.
Okay. And just to switch gears a little bit, I know one of the things you've been working on or talking about is your use of technology, specifically augmented reality, as kind of a way to, I guess, improve communication with clients and end users. Tell me a little bit more about that and kind of what the problem is and how you're trying to solve it with this technology.
Oh, sure. Before Troy gets into that, I also wanted to say that one of the reasons why I was attracted to GBBN was that we do have people like Troy as a resource. I think we're only a 150 person firm, but we've got resources of much larger firms, and the kind of thinking that Troy applies and we're able to kind of deploy to our projects is, I think, very unique to the market. So with that, thanks. I just wanted to slip that in before Troy started talking about AR.
Yeah, so one of the things that's unique within the architecture world is everything that we are doing is through visualization and communication, right? So our whole effort, what our vision is for the final building, never gets realized until it's actually built. But we have to communicate internally within ourselves, amongst our team. We have to be able to communicate with our clients. We have to be able to communicate with our contractors, and obviously we do that through forms of drawings and renderings and models and other forms of representation. The constant issue with all those things is that drawings are a language. There are symbols and there are representations that you kind of have to be trained to read that language and understand that language. Which our clients are fantastic at what they do as a profession. Reading drawings is not what they're asked to do as a profession. So interpreting those drawings often comes as a bit of a challenge. I'll also say that trying to represent three-dimensional space through two-dimensional media, like on paper in drawings or in renderings, doesn't accurately represent the idea of the space. Or doesn't tell the whole story, if you will, right? So we've been working a lot with augmented reality as a way to get us one step closer to that kind of built full-scale element to help that communication and understand the space. Because really, the designing of the space is about a feel of that space. To see on a drawing a 10-foot wide corridor, you may tell yourself, yeah, I know how far 10 feet is. But then to actually be in a hospital and pushing two gurneys past each other down a 10-foot corridor has a little bit of a different feeling, right? And when that has, a chip wall opposed to saying a glass wall that has a much more open feel, that can make that feel even more kind of compressed or enclosed, if you will, right? So by allowing us to use augmented reality, we're actually able to put ourselves, our clients, our contractors in a three-dimensional space that is of the scale of the final, to be able to help kind of talk through some of those potential issues and how we might solve some of those. And I think the unique thing, we work in both virtual reality (VR) as well as augmented reality (AR). The unique thing, I think, is while virtual reality is 100% a fictitious space, right? Everything you're looking at all around you is all computer generated, you're pretty much stationary in that space. You're turning around and you're getting a kind of very curated vantage point of that space where augmented reality allows us to take digital elements, digital design elements, and put them in the physical space that you can then navigate kind of throughout. And being able to do that has just elevated the understanding and the experience that our clients are getting for that space to help that communication even further. And it's also allowing them to, walk through, talk through potential issues in the kind of configuration of those space. A lot of our clients, as Michael mentioned, are healthcare, and there's very particular processes or procedures that have to happen, as well as a wide range of staff that are necessary for each of those kind of operations. So bringing all those kind of stakeholders together in the actual space, although, digitally reproduced, but the actual space allows them to all stand around, say, the same patient bed, talk about that, exam room and talk about what works well and where we might need to make some edits and adjustments for. So it's really that communication issue is at the heart of basically everything that we are doing as designers to better communicate what our design intent is before any dollars are spent on actually building out the final space, if you will. Changing things early in the project is a lot less expensive than changing things later in the project. So that's where we've really kind of benefited and seen the advantage, not only for ourselves as designers, but more importantly for clients and for our contractors as well.
This sounds similar to what like building information modeling or BIM, and how is that? How is it similar or different than something like BIM?
Sure. So building information modeling, BIM modeling is still all about a computer model that exists fully and is primarily used for production and documentation, right? It's just a way for us to build out the model in 3 dimensions as a single object and then be able to cut necessary plans and sections and the necessary construction documents from that. What's nice about building information modeling is the other information you can embed into it, things like door schedules, window schedules that are necessary for that construction process. However, this is more focused around the end user. This is more focused on walking through that space and understanding it at full scale, kind of in I'm going to put quote unquote real life scenario, opposed to looking at it through a computer screen and moving around through a computer screen. The interface that we are using for the augmented reality process is one of two things, either an iPad that you hold in front of you and actually walk through the space and you're seeing through the lens of that camera, the digital and the physical world overlaid as you're navigating through that. Or we also have a pair of augmented reality goggles that you can actually put on as a headset, where again, you're seeing through a clear lens. It's not a virtual reality where it's totally a computer screen in front of you, but you're seeing through a clear lens. And on top of that lens is the projection of the augmented reality model within that. So instead of necessarily living in a computer screen and just navigating via a mouse, you're physically navigating through that space. When I'm standing on one side of a space and a colleague is standing on the other side, we're looking at the same exact elements, the same patient bed, right? The same head wall, things like that in that space. And we're actually able to link this live to our computer model that is controlling that augmented reality model and make live updates if that's what we want to do. We can talk about the way that valves, gases, things like that on a head wall are laid out, and we can actually live move those and talk through what that kind of best operation procedure would be for that space as a whole.
And even do design changes on the fly as well. So, we just built out a new office here in Northeast Minneapolis just last summer. And while we were part of that office, there's a custom metal feature wall. It's about 22 feet high. And we were able to work with our graphic designer in the Cincinnati office. Several of us were here in Minneapolis. We were uploading different patterns for that wall, and all of us were able to just basically be looking at that full height, effect of what that graphic would be as they were making those changes. So it's a very good way to get everybody on board with design ideas as well.
Mm-hmm. And how long have you been using AR, and how have your clients reacted to this?
So we started using it internally, and it would have been about late COVID, about the same time actually we opened up the Minneapolis office there, late 2020. We had a project here in town that dealt with an undulating brick facade, and we needed to be able to ensure that our masons were able to construct that undulated brick facade. We were also working somewhat remote at that point. And so, as Michael mentioned, because this is all living in a cloud model and we can push it to various iPads in different locations, I could be, working remote from my home, pushing it to Michael working remote up in Minneapolis or any of our other colleagues, and we're looking at, the same exact design. In this case, we're looking at it in two different locations, but we're looking at the same model, the same design. We could test it internally to understand, because of the undulations, we could play around with how much undulation we could achieve to see how much overlapping each course of the bricks would have, course to course. And then where this was really powerful was bringing in our masons, letting them actually enter into the augmented reality model, see what we were suggesting and actually talk through, is this feasible? Are you comfortable with the amount of undulations we produce? Do you think you could, construct this? If not, where do we have to make changes? And because it's a live model, we could actually start to pull back some of that undulation when they started saying, hey, I think we have a little too much overlap. We need to pull back some of those courses. We can actually pull back. It's one of those things where, the earlier we can get our contractors and fabricators on board, the more that they have a say in that early design process, the quicker that we come to these solutions and the quicker that we're able to then deliver for our clients and not have those costly holdups within the construction process. It also, by bringing those contractors in early, they really become allies. They have a voice in what the design is and what they're capable of, opposed to, just some designers who design something and don't really have a grasp on how this is going to get built, right? So having an ownership in that, I think that's the other half of my title, which is that fabrication side, which is, us as designers, us as architects, taking back that idea of craft, and understanding how the building, a building is built, that it's not just lines on a paper or in a computer model, that we're understanding the assembly, not only the materials and building process, but the sequencing of that, and helping kind of be an ally to understanding that fabrication process and providing solutions to our contractors, opposed to just problems that they have to solve and figure out how to make.
Mhm. And ultimately, that it really translates to more certainty earlier in the design process, which of course then is directly proportional to the amount of fee or the amount of cost that these subcontractors are, wanting to or having to charge simply because they don't, in the past where they receive maybe a picture and maybe a couple drawings, they still don't know how it's going to get built, obviously, to Troy's point. So there's a lot of contingency built into their proposals. Well, this way we can get them on board, reducing that uncertainty, and it ultimately does translate to reduce cost.
Hmm. We've come a long way since the old lines on a paper days, haven't we?
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
Trying to
true,
trying to
true.
move as far away from that as possible. I mean, the next steps in augmented reality that we very much see is how do we get this out more onto the construction site, right?
Mhm.
There's a lot of studies right now that are being done with using AR to be able to do things like we initially proposed, which was the undulating brick wall and so forth, right? To one of our issues is that we move from three-dimensionally modeling this to having to produce two-dimensional drawings that then to build the building three-dimensionally again. Can we bypass that interpretation from three-dimension back to two-dimension, just to three-dimension? Can we just pass along directly from a digital model, the three-dimensional assembly of this that the contractors are then building directly off of? Um, and and within that, obviously that communication, the timing within there, and there's also a more direct link, between the designer and the contractor in that regard, right? That we're working together to be able to talk through this and what the deliverables are going to be, and how they execute. I think one of the big things we see in especially, masonry is a really easy industry to focus this on, is that we're elevating, we're not replacing the masons, right? There's a lot of bricklaying robots that exist, that are out on the job sites that can help with real simple, running bond, stack bond patterns, things like that. This is actually uh, allowing a tool to facilitate the skills of that mason. We're not taking a job away from the mason. We're actually elevating and allowing, the more entry level masons to be able to do more complex building work by giving them the augmented reality overlay on top of that and actually kind of pushing their skill level even further. So we also have a lot less change time. If we go and modify that design, that undulation, we don't have to reproduce all those two-dimensional drawings to then build it again. That we can simply push that immediate two-dimension. That's one of the nice things that we've done with working with clients is that process that goes from our computer model to a ready to walk through augmented reality model is just an hour or two worth of translation. So we're showing them the most recent up-to-date design as of the night before that they're walking through. And again, we can even go so far as to be live changing or live making edits to these models. So if they're seeing the most recent version, there's not this time of documentation and translation that has to happen.
Mhm. And speaking of translation too, we from a healthcare standpoint, we see our primary clients having to spend a lot less time making sure the folks that are working for them really understand what the proposed solutions are, because they can just bring them to the meetings and you're inhabiting the space rather than giving somebody a set of drawings and a couple static, pictures of what it should be. I mean, obviously, there's always a lot of questions to be asked, and all of these folks, they've got full-time jobs doing something other than construction management. So it's really can be helpful to them when they can bring their folks in and everybody is in that same literal room and walking through the new space, answering questions on the fly as we're explaining kind of the intent.
Yeah, it's always more impactful to be able to show it versus just talking about it or so. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
fascinating stuff. Um, I wonder if we could just take a step back also and look at just the broader market here for folks in your industry. The AIA recently came out with a report showing that architectural buildings were down again in September. I think it was the 12th consecutive month of being in negative territory. What is your workload been like, and what is your outlook for the next 12 months?
Yeah, it's definitely true, that there are some real challenges out there, some headwinds, and we felt some of the impact, like everyone else in our region. But in our conversations with clients and potential clients, there's still an appetite for projects there. They want to move forward, but they're still need to be held back by budget constraints and different uncertainties around funding strategies and dealing mitigating rising costs and complex funding environments. It's not that there isn't the desire; it's they're just waiting for the right time when the financing can make sense. And so we're optimistic that with the recent adjustments to the interest rates, it's going to take some time for that to kind of work its way into the market. But then also there's, increasing availability of diverse funding sources. Combining this that should help unlock some of that, pent up demand. And then our clients, of course, though, are always going to be looking for innovative solutions, and we're working with them to help, figure out how to get that started. So in the next few months, it's going to still be a challenge. It's going to take some time to get that momentum back. But we're definitely, quite optimistic that as financial pressures ease, we're going to see some more of these projects starting up again. Yeah, we had quite a few, that were awarded but then put on hold last year, and we're, got a tremendous backlog that's just waiting to pop here.
Mhm.
So, that's going, and then we see that across all of our markets. So,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
we
it'll
also
be interesting. Hmm.
Yeah, I was just also going to add that we are, also starting to see a kind of almost a return to office effort kind of take hold slowly as kind of the effects of as companies are adjusting to the remote working environment and how that's affected their communication, office culture and the like. So we're hoping that will also kind of lend to some more interest in, centralizing again or going back into the office in some ways as well.
Hmm. Yeah, we'll see what happens there.
Yeah.
Well, Well, thank you both for your time. I don't want to take up too much of your time here, but is there
Oh,
anything else that you'd like to mention or talk about before I go?
see, Troy, did you have anything?
I mean, I really appreciate the time. It's one of those things where uh, I enjoy what I get to do. It's an exciting kind of time to be able to push some of our technology uses of within it, and the pairing within the built world and the digital world. That translation between the two has really been fascinating. I see nothing but positive in terms of what it can provide for our clients. Expediting some of these project schedules, which are always tricky. We talked a little bit about, the current economy kind of holding on some of these projects. When they do hit, they're going to be go, go, go. And trying to keep those costs under control. I think a lot of these workflows that we're spending time investing in now is really going to pay off when that does come through. So appreciate the time and being able to kind of share this with some of your listeners.
Yeah, and I'd just add, I've always been quite interested in kind of improving our process efficiency here as in project delivery. It's been something that even for the past, 15 years of my career, I've tried to kind of help focus on. And, that came from the realization that, of all the industries in North America, like we're really the only one that hasn't can't really demonstrate any increased efficiency since basically the Industrial Revolution. So that's a bit of I've kind of taken that on as a challenge here. So I'm really excited to be kind of working towards this, processes that we can help, basically make, everything we do a little bit more efficient for the benefits of both the design side and the construction side and also our clients as well. So really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. And yeah, thank you.
Well, I appreciate your time, Michael and Troy. Best of luck to you here in Minneapolis, and hope we can stay in touch. And feel free to reach out anytime.
Great. Will do.
Thank you much,
Thanks,
Brian.
Brian. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you as well. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks.
Bye bye.
Bye.